In this video, we're going to share some of the updates we did to our motorhome in 2025, why we did the updates, and what they cost. Stay tuned. So just a quick rundown of the things that we did that we're going to share in this video is we replaced our kitchen cooktop. We added a UV water filter faucet to our kitchen sink area. We added a cable junction box on the roof, and I'll explain why. And we finally got the Starlink Dish mounted to the roof permanently, but in a way that we can remove it if we ever need to. Our original cooktop had the glass surface literally pop loose from the cooktop unit. If I held it in place just right, I could get the power buttons to work, but it was very hit and miss. I contacted support for True Induction, who makes this unit, and they said that the specific build, it was nearly impossible for even them to realign it to work consistently. I priced the cooktop replacement hardware with Tiffin just to see, and they had nearly a 30% or 40% markup on them versus me just buying it directly from Amazon. Turns out these are super easy to install, so no need to pay extra for the hardware or for the labor, and this is just another case where overpriced goods forced me to look at a DIY project, and I'm glad it did. I started by removing all 3 drawers below the cooktop. These drawers are very deep, and so I could not reach in far enough to see where the 110 volt power cord to the cooktop went exactly, and that cord kind of just disappeared in the back of that space, plugging in completely out of my sight. But while I looked in there, I did notice that I was seeing the back of the outside TV when I looked at that back wall through the drawer space. So I went outside and removed the TV mount so I could look behind it, and the power cord for the cooktop was very easy to see at that point and access. This allowed me to easily unplug the old cooktop and know that I was going to be able to plug in the new cooktop very easily. We thought we might use this as an opportunity to get a cooktop with other features that we wanted, or possibly more than 2 cooking surfaces. But each model is made with different dimensions, and we were not really interested in making that kind of significant changes to our countertop where the cooktop sits by having to cut a bigger hole or change that aspect of it. That would have been a ton of work. However, they did make some improvements to our same model over the years since ours was installed, so we did gain some new things. First, we got the lock button, which we'd always wanted, where you can actually lock the controls. This helps a lot when cleaning the surface. When you're wiping it down, it doesn't keep hitting the buttons and turning it off and on and off and on. Also, if you might have children in the motorhome, you could lock it to possibly avoid injuries. And the beeping sounds it makes when you turn the unit on or push any buttons are much softer. They were pretty aggressive before, honestly. Not only the beeps when you push buttons, but when you lift a pan or skillet from the surface, when it's powered on, it starts beeping repeatedly to let you know. And this in particular is very nice to have be a more subdued sound. This one was pretty easy overall in terms of the effort to get this replaced, even though it may seem like a pain to have removed the outside TV to access the plug outside. It wasn't that hard, and it was easier than the option of trying to reach through the deep drawer space and get back to that power cord. The cost of the new unit again was $400 on Amazon. Tiffin wanted $540, and this did not include their labor to install it. So again, another situation that caused me to look at DIY because the pricing was ridiculous. And I knew I could save at least hundreds of dollars between added hardware cost and labor. Next, let's talk about the UV water faucet that we installed. This was a much bigger upgrade for us than it might first appear. And this is another one where I was planning on when and where and how to pay someone else to do the work. And then I realized my main concern really when I broke it down was just drilling that hole in the countertop. I wasn't confident with that. So I watched a handful of YouTube videos, found one that was really solid for information and stuff, and I felt now confident after that I could do it. The plumbing part was really easy. The electric is just a power cord to a nearby 120 volt plug since I didn't do the DC option, but I may still someday just for a cleaner install. So adding a diamond tipped 5/8 inch drill bit was all I needed to do, and I was set to do the work really. So the main driver for adding this faucet was to add yet another layer of protection for us, plus improving the taste of drinking water and the convenience, which I will explain soon. At many campgrounds, the water does taste fine. In fact, I think at most it does. At some, it does not taste good at all. And we drink a lot of water, and we do like to drink campground water from our faucet when it is good. There is a place we stay regularly where the water does not taste good. I've told the owner I think it's an expensive problem to fix for them, so I'm not sure if they'll get around to it. But some friends had stayed at the same campground when we were there, and they let us taste the water from this campground through their UV water faucet filter, and it actually tasted good. And probably if not for that taste test, I may have been too skeptical to add a UV filter for ourselves to improve the flavor, but it totally does in this case. I still felt like even this little bit of gamble to buy it, even if it didn't fix the flavor of the water at this one particular location, we knew it would be safer long term to have this in the mix, protecting our water. Before the UV water faucet was added, we would buy large packs of bottled water at Walmart. It's a huge nuisance because they're heavy to put in the cart, they're heavy to put into the car, and then you have to bring them into the motorhome and store them somewhere. And then every evening you have to put more bottles into the fridge at the end of each day to make up for the ones you drank. So just another thing to buy regularly, heavy, a nuisance, something I didn't want to deal with just long term, but it was a short term fix. So we still keep some bottled water on hand for those times when we might be off the city water somewhere for a night or two and living off the fresh tank for bathing and whatnot for some period of time. But a pack of 40 water bottles now will last us weeks and weeks, where typically in the past it was not even a week long for 40 bottles to last us. The UV filter on this faucet is rated at 2,000 hours, and that's not 2,000 hours of time passing, it's 2,000 hours of running water. So if you think about the few seconds that you turn it on all day long, it's going to take a while to get to 2,000 hours. So it's expected that this will last several years, and then you just simply replace the UV filter, which as of today is only $99. So that feels like a really good value. The UV faucet we bought is made by Blue Technology, and we bought ours from Mobile Must Have. The full price on this unit is currently $380 as of late 2025. If you're a member of Mobile Must Have, there's benefits to that. One of those is a discount on products. We get it for $340 as a member, and we had actually stored up some member credits, so we only paid right at $300 to get this one. The drill bit that I bought to drill that hole was $30. It was a Milwaukee 5/8 inch diamond one-piece hole saw. And to connect it to the plumbing, I needed a T-connector, which I found on Amazon for $11. Zero labor, because I got brave and did this one myself, which I should do more often, and I'm honestly trying to do that. All right, next up, let's talk about a cable junction box I installed on the roof of the motorhome a few months ago. I wanted to do this since I saw Chad on Changing Lanes on YouTube install one on his Grand Design toy hauler. There's a few reasons for it. So way before this, a couple years prior, I had a professional guy in Red Bay, Alabama install a rooftop cellular and Wi-Fi antenna a couple years ago, probably by now. And I was pretty nervous to drill holes in the roof, but this guy had worked at Tiffin for over 30 years. He had this side business where he does all the techie stuff, and he is the go-to guy. Everybody points to Nick Brewer if you need this type of work done, anything technology related. So I was going to have him install the box, and I wanted to put it under the antenna he installed, but I decided I was going to give it a try myself, and I'm really glad I did. It wasn't as challenging as I had imagined. So the major goal to get this box installed on the roof was to get the Starlink router inside the house once and for all. I've been putting this off for way too long. It's not rated to sit outside. It can survive, but it's not really rated for that. So when Nick Brewer in Red Bay installed the antenna, he had made a 1-inch hole in the roof down to the space behind the motorhome TV and pulled the cables through down there, and that's where the router sits. So our roof is actually 6 inches thick and is a solid layer of styrofoam, which I've now seen through this hole that he made. He made the hole through that to pull the antenna cables into the space behind the TV in our bedroom and bundled and tied that up in that space. My two main goals with the box were to pull that cable out from behind the TV and free up some space, and then also to route the cable for Starlink's router to come inside. I found a grommet that I really liked on Amazon to bring the Starlink cable into the box and be a nice tight seal and not just a big gaping hole. First I had to pry off the antenna that Nick had installed. It had an entire sticky pad on the bottom of it, so the whole thing stuck, and then he of course put sealant around it to assure no leaks inside the motorhome. And this actually required a lot of patience, so I didn't damage the antenna or the roof or whatever. So I used a large plastic putty knife to push under the antenna, just round and round and round and round and round, and eventually worked all the sticky loose, and then just picked that up. So I had to remove the antenna and put the box over that hole on that same spot, and then mount the antenna back on top of that box once everything was in place. So this went better than I expected. I had actually spent months thinking about it because I was nervous, but by thinking about it for a long time and making some notes and kind of laying out my order of operations, I was able to get 85-ish% of my order of operations figured out, so that on the day I did it, the things I had to figure out last second didn't really add a lot of delay. This box cost $45 on Amazon. It's 6 by 6 by 12. I had some 3Com VHB tape and some CSL sealant, which is the good stuff. People talk about Dicor, it gets good advertising and marketing, but CSL is what Tiffin and all their vendors use because it is dramatically superior in every way, honestly. So this keeps all these things were to keep it connected firmly and to be waterproofed. So $75 total for this whole install. With this box installed, setting up Starlink was way easier already and quicker than ever. I just had to climb up on the roof with the dish, and the Ethernet cable was coming out of that box. I just plugged in the dish, and the router was already powered on inside the house behind the TV, and the dish would come online, and I would tape it to the roof a couple places and make sure it didn't blow away. But the final and ultimate step was to get the dish mounted on the roof in a secure way. And then there would be zero setup and teardown, and it works while in motion. So going down the road, we have our home Wi-Fi working. So if we're out of cell signal doesn't matter anymore. We're on Wi-Fi calling with our phones, and we have data literally if there aren't things over our head. And so with this, Starlink feeds our home Wi-Fi as the uplink, in motion, parked. We never have to touch Starlink again. It's just always on, always online. An important piece of this install was I wanted the ability to remove the dish if I ever wanted to or needed to. So if we parked under an obstruction for any reason, I didn't want it to be so permanently affixed to the roof I couldn't take it off. So Nick uses a kit that allows that, and I could take it off and stick it on a pole buddy. Pole buddy is a set of poles that you can buy and either mount it with suction cups or different ways to your ladder, mount it to the side of your rig. So if you just need to get a few feet higher to get past a tree line or something, pole buddy is really common for people to use to get the dish up higher. Or maybe we need to run it on the ground, 50 yards or something like that. So most people say that once they've mounted it, they've never needed to take it down, and that's what I hope for, but I want the ability to do that. One example of where Starlink on the roof would have been handy for us already, we had that flat tire in the trailer. You may have seen a video on that. We were in the backwoods of Montana on a lonely highway, and the cell phone signal was terrible. And by the time we pulled over, we had one bar if we stood in a specific spot way in front of our motorhome to call for roadside assistance, but otherwise it was dead. And before we found that one spot for signal, I was thinking, do I need to get Starlink out of the box that's in the trailer that just had a flat and set it up so we can do Wi-Fi calling? So this is a great use case for, we would have had a phone signal at that location had we had the Starlink online and mounted. Another good change that comes from this is that sometimes I feel like we need to have a cellular data plan in our routers when we're going to be moving often. The most common use case for us is when we're in Red Bay. We need to be at the work bays at 7 a.m. and rolling out at 7 and coming back at 3 every day for days, if not weeks on end, would mean setting up Starlink over and over and over. I didn't want to do that. So in the past, I would set up a cellular plan and just use that for the Red Bay visits. Now the Starlink will just work and we don't have to set that up and tear it down. The cost for this Starlink install was about $700. We got a repeat customer discount from Nick. I think the locals there charge less if you're a repeat customer. They appreciate the repeat business. The mounting hardware was about half of that, or at least half of that. and then some supplies that he used or whatever. And then you're paying for his labor and expertise, so you can't question that it only takes him an hour or less, because he's done it almost 1,000 times. So what you're paying for is a guy that knows what he's doing. So that wraps up the most recent updates we've made to the motorhome. Mostly DIY. I did go with professional help on the one item because he was available. I would have it done quickly, and honestly, with the amount that he was using based on experience that I wasn't going to use, it is much, much better than what I was going to install for real. Let us know if you have any questions about the details that we may have failed to share here. I'm happy to answer in the comments, and thank you for watching.